So if you get called for interview, you're already in the top 66 or so % of the applicant pool. And when we get people here for interview, first thing we tell them is that the interview is not make or break. It's part of the whole picture of candidates that we've built up over all the different things that they've sent us in. You would never ever have an interview just with one person. We've done a mock interview for the purposes of this film that just shows an interviewee and an interviewer. Actually, there would always be 2 people in the room, sometimes even 3. We have people from the admissions office at the university sometimes who come in to check how interviews are going, and they're always watching us to see how we're interviewing as a kind of quality control. But always you'd have 2 people in the room conducting the interview, usually a mixed pair, so a male interviewer and a female interviewer. We'd split the interview between us. One person would be asking questions while the other was making notes, typically.
The interview can take many forms. For example, the candidate may be given some text to read before the interview and then asked to discuss that in the interview, or they might not be given anything to read, but instead simply asked to consider some questions in the interview. Whatever form the interview takes, the tutors will be interested in how the applicant thinks, how they reason, whether they are passionate about their subject, whether they are motivated to study here, and whether they have the potential to thrive at this university.
Would you say there's something really kind of fundamentally shared in those kinds of situations across those different periods and different societies?
We'll find some similarities. That's kind of almost natural in history to find a lot of similarities between periods. Whether it's in the same way, I'm not so sure.
I cannot stress this enough. The number one piece of advice I would give to anyone is to think out loud. And so what that means is when you get asked the questions, explain what you understand by the question, explain what you're assuming, say, okay, this is how I arrived at the answer I did. If the tutor says to you, are you sure? Say, yeah, I'm sure for this reason, or actually, you know what, I'm doubting it because of this. Honestly, when you're doing it, it sounds ridiculous. But if you just think about that piece of advice, if you are good enough to get into Oxford, but you don't show that you're good enough to get into Oxford, there's a massive question mark.
The best preparation for an interview, I think, is to think about things that you've read or things you've written about and practice talking about them with a friend or a teacher. They don't have to be an expert in the field in any way, and they don't have to really know about the system, just to warm you up, just to get you used to saying what I find striking about this text, or what I enjoyed in this poem is this or that, or this book seems different from the other book in the following ways. So if you can practice making arguments like that and talking about stuff that you've enjoyed.
So to prepare, I basically just thought about the basic questions like why I want to do law. And instead of learning an answer by rote, just literally think about why you want to do it. Be genuine. Again, similarly to the personal statement, be yourself, be honest with yourself.
I think the way to approach a question that you know you don't quite have a particularly straightforward or compelling answer to is to just qualify it. Just say, you know, I don't know whether this is what you're looking for, but I would infer that, you know, this is the process that we'd go about attaining an answer. And ask questions. You know, it's okay to say, is that correct? Is this the sort of thing that you're looking for?
But the element of discussion and debate rather than do you know the right answer to this question, I think is a really important factor that people need to understand about the interview. It's really just trying to learn more about you as a person rather than how many facts you've got crammed into your head.